Hi everyone, welcome back to today's session. As part of today's session, let us understand the housekeeping activities in BW for HANA. So, you might have heard this housekeeping activity as a BW consultant or BW on HANA consultant or BW for HANA consultant one time or the other, right? So, generally, these housekeeping activities are not something new. These are there from initial days of SAP BW, and in BW, right, generally when we say BW, the BW system is one of the application software, and underneath which we will have an database, correct? If our BW system is using non-HANA database, we generally call it as normal BW system. However, if the BW system is running on HANA database, we call it as BW on HANA. However, the latest version of BW on HANA or latest version of BW suit, we call it as BW for HANA also, right? So in all these system, right, housekeeping activities are very much important. So what exactly is housekeeping activity? So if you have some knowledge on the process chain in BW, we know that we trigger process chain, right? When we trigger a process chain, obviously the process chain log will be stored in some standard tables. Similarly, if I am triggering a DTP, if I am triggering an info package to extract the data from source system to BW, and if I am triggering a DTP to load data from one info provider to another info provider, generally what will happen? The entire data will be loaded from a source to target, but that particular metadata, okay, on this particular time this particular DTP has been triggered, this person has been triggered, this is the data or the total number of records which has been taken from the source, and this is what we've been posted to target. All this information has to be stored somewhere in our BW system. Any variations of BW, whether it is BW on HANA, BW for HANA, all this data, right, it will be stored in some standard tables. Okay. So as the time progresses, right, the amount of data which will be stored in this standard table to store process chain log or to store your chain log data set or to store any of the PSA data which may not be used anymore, right? All these will pile up and start consuming too much of memory. This in turn will affect your pricing, which as a client, your client might be paying to the SAP company, right? They might have to pay hefty amount, or else they might have to request for additional hardware upgrade and all. This will cost money for sure, right? So this housekeeping activity focus on ensuring that your system is very healthy with the current set of hardware and software configuration what we have. At the same time, this also focus on removing the redundant data which may not be required, right? And ensuring the system is health and hail. Okay, so come on guys, as part of today's this small episode, let us understand what are the different types of housekeeping activities which you may expect in BW for HANA, right? Come on guys, let us start today's session. The agenda would be, we'll be seeing overview of the housekeeping activity which we have already discussed, and then followed by we'll be seeing different housekeeping activities which we can expect in BW for HANA system. Okay, so housekeeping activities again we can subgroup into various different categories of tasks. Okay, so the first category is data management and cleanup. Okay, this particular activity talks about deleting your absolute data. When I say absolute data, the data which is no longer required for us. Okay, so managing data store objects partitions. Okay, there are any ADSO partitions or DSO, older DSO partition, if you want to manage, how to manage these partitions. And compressing and activation of the data. Assume that there is a data which is not in compressed or activated form. How can we, this particular step focuses on ensuring your data is compressed and activated. Okay, so when we talk about deletion of absolute data, right, so here we will be focusing on removing the outdated data request from your data target, mainly from ADSOs, because in case of BW for HANA, we have only one persistent object which is advanced DSO. We also call it as ADSO, right? And for some reasons, if at all you are using PSA, so this deletion of absolute data will also focus on removing data from your PSA table, because once we extract the data might get stored in PSA if at all you are still going with a conventional data source extraction approach instead of ODP enabled data source, right? the older request which is already been pushed, the data has been pushed to target, means if that data is no longer required, right, we can always cleanse that PSA request, and unused data from info providers also we can remove. That's what the first step focuses on. Similarly, manage data store object partitions. Okay, assume that you have an ADSO which is going to hold huge amount of transactional data. In that case, you might be aware that we generally call it as temperature. In BW on ANA or BW for ANA, if at all your current landscape supports, they might have configured hot memory, warm memory, and cold storage. Generally, we also call it as storage, right? Hot storage, warm storage, and cold storage for efficient data tearing. Okay, we generally call this particular concept as data tearing. So, if you want to move not so commonly used data to cold memory, you can always do that if at all the cold memory is configured in your system. Same ways, you can also have the warm memory configured and hot memory configured. Hot memory is like our live RAM, which is there in every single HANA system. Okay. Similarly, the next step in the compress and activate data will be focusing mainly on regular compression of the DSO data request and activation of master data and transactional data. So generally, in case of BW for HANA, activation of master data and transactional data is very much required. One example would be, if at all you are creating an ADSO which is going to behave like a cube, every single characteristics will going to act like a key, primary key field, correct? So that the data will not overwrite. So if at all we are going with that setting, right, so the ADSO is going to behave like a cube, meaning default property would be aggregation plus all the characteristics will act like a key fields, right? When we load the data to this type of ADSO, right, there is not necessary that we will have to activate the request. Okay, we can still load the data. When we load the data, generally the data will go and sit where? It will go and sit in our inbound table. Okay, so in case of ADSO of type cube, when we create any BEX report on top of this type of ADSOs, right, the data from inbound and active data table will be merged and further provided to the reporting layer. So if we do the activation, what will happen? The compression of number of records will happen. However, the KPI will get aggregated based on the uniqueness of our characteristics. Got it? So that is with respect to data management and cleanup. These are the different types of activity which will work. But for all these activities, right, you can also perform these activities manually. However, SAP has also given process chain, process steps. You can make use of that also. Or sometimes SAP has also given a standard programs. We can include those standard program as a process step, ABAP process step in our process chain and schedule it to run on an specific intervals, right? So moving on, process chain monitoring. So under process chain monitoring, we will have scheduling and monitoring of process chain, and repair of failed runs will comes into picture. And again, the process chain log will be stored in two of the main standard tables. Okay, so RSPC process log and RSPC log PC something is there. You can Google it, you will get it. Maybe in future session we'll focus on each of the items in detail, how to actually achieve that in the system. But for this session, we'll keep it as a summary. So under scheduling the process chain, we will generally what we do, we'll automate the data loads, we'll clean up the jobs, and we'll do the error handling, right? We wanted to efficiently manage this, and else also we wanted to clear the old logs. And if at all any steps are failed, we just wanted to use the logs and stated dashboard to troubleshoot what has caused the issue and how to overcome that, so that these error logs will not be there for a very long period and it will not pile up. Okay, so moving on. So the next category of housekeeping activity, what we can think of is metadata and object maintenance. Okay, clean unused info objects and queries, and update attributes and hierarchies. Assume that in our system we might have migrated from older BW version to BW on HANA and followed by BW for HANA. In that case, since it's a whole system, we might have created some of the master data info objects and BEX reports. Some might be used currently in production and some may not be used in production. What we'll have to do as part of this is, we'll have to identify what are the set of info objects which are being consumed by other reporting solutions, or in our reporting only are we consuming any of the info object. If at all there are some unused info objects are there, we'll have to first do the analysis and identify that. Likewise, we will have to identify unused queries also. Once we identified unused queries, we can cleanse the system so that we are reducing the number of unused objects or redundant objects. At the same time, our system is clean. Sometimes all this unused info object, right, maybe huge amount of master data might be loaded to that info object and left like that. Since we are not using, we can really make sense to empty that p table or t table of the master data, right? And similarly update attributes and hierarchies. If at all we are taking care of any of the attributes and hierarchies as part of to ensure the reporting accuracy and to provide more information at the reporting layer, if at all anything is there, we'll have to ensure that is it up to date. Housekeeping activity does not only focus on reducing the amount of data which is stored in some standard tables. Okay, it also ensures that our system is healthy and whatever we are going to report, right, it is absolutely correct as per the business expectation also. Okay. So the next category would be system performance and optimization. In this, there are two main activities which we can think of. One is system background jobs and the other one is review system statistics. So you might be aware in our system, right, lot of jobs have been scheduled to run on a periodical basis, and these jobs where we can see these jobs from SM37 transaction code, right? Generally what might happen, right, our system might be there from very long period, right? There might be some jobs which might be running from years which might have been scheduled to run on a periodical basis, correct? But that job is no longer really required to run, and sometimes this job, right, might be consuming huge amount of our system memory and processing power. In that case, identifying this unwanted background job is very very important. After identification, we will also have to cross check and suspend it if it is no longer required. Okay, that is very very important. At the same time, next object what we can think of is review system statistics. You might be aware or come across a technical content, right? There will be an objects, it can be a info object, it can be ADS, or it can be query, start with 0 TCT. Okay, all these objects we call it as technical content object, which is going to hold BW statistical information. Okay, so these particular informations also will be piled up because the system will be keep running, query will be keep on executing, process will keep running. So we'll have to ensure that we are also cleansing these particular statistics tables also. After, for example, you keep stats only for last 5 years and remove all the old data, or else keep only last 2 years of data and remove all other, if at all you are fine and your architect is fine, right? So the other category we can think of is standardized cleanup routines. Okay, so there's an SAP note, you can refer this particular note wherein SAP has given what are the various housekeeping activity which you can think of and which you can consider to implement your current system which you might be working. Also they have given a toolbox called ASU toolbox integration, which will give us a beautiful interface using which you can monitor the housekeeping tasks also. And also there is something called early watch report. Okay, generally if you have an access to your SAP's product portal of the client, you will be able to run and get and download this SAP early watch report, EWR we call it as. Okay, this particular report will analyze 24/7 our system's health, and it will highlight, okay, if there are any table which is going to hit maximum number of record which a table can supposed to store, right? Or else if at all a particular job is running or taking too much of time, or else if running a vex report is consuming too much of system memory or RAM space, it will highlight that in that particular early watch report. Okay, you can also seek and help of your lead, or else you can reach out to SAP security or basis team. They will be able to download that early watch report for each of the system. Okay, this early watch report will be there for a specific system. You get it for all the system which you might be interested in, and do the analysis, or anyhow it will give all the key points for you to analyze. You analyze it and take a call accordingly. Okay, so And SAP also given SAP BW for HANA cockpit tools. There is a Fury based interface, you can make use of that. It's a centralized access to model, monitor, and data maintenance. Okay, so you can make use of that Fury based interface to monitor the health of your system, and also do the monitoring and other related activities. So user-friendly dashboard, as I said, that this Fury-based application is a user-friendly dashboard. You can able to visualize the change statuses, object usage, and system health, so on and so forth. So main important thing is like you have to, as a responsible BW consultant or a BW team member, we will have to go one step ahead, along with our normal day-to-day tasks such as development task or else application maintenance support task, right? We'll also have to focus on this, because if our system is healthy, and if at all we are ensuring that we are not going to hit any bumper, right, or else any threshold of any category, right, that is always good for us. And this way, if you can do the analysis, one way it is good for a client which you are going to work, one way you are also ensuring your system is healthy, and at the same time you are also getting more and more work. If at all, for example, you are working for a as a consultant from the service based company and providing services to your client, in that case, doing this activity is going to extend your billing, and which results in bringing more revenue to your parent organization also, right? So that is very much important, right? So that's all about housekeeping activities in BW for HANA system, guys. It is not the activities which we do only in BW for HANA. Similar set of activities were also there earlier in BW system, BW on HANA system. Since BW for HANA is the latest and greatest version of SAP BW suite, we'll also have to do this kind of housekeeping activities in our BW for HANA system also. So in the future session, I'm planning to create a dedicated video on each and every topic and how we are going to achieve. For example, there is an housekeeping activity such as cleansing a process chain log, cleaning a BW statistical log, or is clearing a change log table. So for example, if at all we have an ADSO, right, and that ADSO is feeding data to the next level ADSO via Delta, right, and our ADSO is going to act like a ADSO of type standard DSO, right? We'll have three tables: inbound table, active data table, and change log table, right? This particular change log table will be keep on accumulating the data. So if at all we don't need older data, we can always analyze and delete the data manually for sure. But however, I am going to explain step by step how can we make use of standard programs given by SAP, or as different mechanisms given by SAP to automate this process, to schedule this job, to ensure that this kind of housekeeping activity will automatically take care by its own. Your job is to just monitor, and this will obviously add lot of values to you if at all you are going to work on this particular item as a team, or else if at all you are going to work as an individual contributor on this particular topic. Obviously you will be highlighted in front of your management and in front of your client, because we are going to add value to our system which you are going to work, right? So that's all, guys, with respect to today's session. Hopefully you have liked this video. If you like this video, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel. At the same time, if you are looking for online training on SAP ABAP, BW, BW ABAP, BW on HANA, BW for HANA, native HANA, and HANA modeling, and HANA related SQL, feel free to reach out to me on my mail ID, that is venugopalmn1988@gmail.com. You can also call me on my mobile number, that is +91 followed by 97399839992. Thank you so much, guys, and have a good one. See you in the next video. Bye bye.